Okay. I'm trying to just go slowly in here before we go outside and turn the loud, noisy things on. Everybody saw this, right? Mm-hmm. These are sharp. So this one, you'll notice it sticks up higher, so you have to use the side where the little flange sticks in. That keeps it centered on the arbor. Oh, I know what I wanted to show you. This is the real question about the wrenches. But let me get there. Let me do one sec. These are basically set up for right-hand people, but they all have an on-off. They're not all, even though these are both Makitas, right? Isn't this a Makita? They don't, depending what model and so forth. So this is an on-off. I actually like this on-off because it's not only on, it locks on. They all have a handle which can be moved. So if you're left-handed, or if you just want to work with your offhand or whatever, so it's basically trigger finger and a support. I know many people who've been working with these for a long time, so I might see one of them doing this, but I don't want to see you guys doing that. You know, two hands, not one hand on this tool. Also, although it may be worn, so anyway, like the trigger on this one, this is a safety, and the trigger, so this has a safety on it, so it's like, I can't just do it by mistake. I have to actually flip this back. So you can get familiar with the tool before you plug it in, right? And this one actually is set up for a left-handed person. These are guards. The trick with the guard is, it should be in a relatively useful position. If this is loose and sliding around, don't use it. Come and get me, Mike, John, or I don't want you guys trying to loosen them because these things get stripped. And the deal with the guard is, I don't really want you to use a tool without a guard. Sort of like if you go in another shop that's not an educational situation, you'll never see probably a safety and a table saw. If you come into my little studio, my things don't have guards on them because it just gets in the way, but it's still a good safety issue, or safety device. But this little arrow comes in very helpful. This tells you which way the thing is spinning, okay? Have any of you used a die grinder? Have any of you used, what's that little thing you guys use that's the crafty thing, the little zzz? Dremel. Have any of you used a Dremel? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you know with a rotary tool, you got that little grinding disc on there, not necessarily the cutting one. You've never used a Dremel?
I don't even know what that is.
It's that little crafty thing, that little rotary tool. It's that little tool that, you know, like you can cut with it, you can grind with it. It's actually very helpful. It's just you can't really deal with heavy duty materials, but they're very wonderful things. The point is if you've used one, you know that like when you're using a tool that spins and you put it down on the surface of something, what does it do? It pulls you in a certain direction. Mm-hmm. And so you have to learn to like have the feel of that and work back towards.
What did you call it again?
With Dremel, but what I have in the shop is die grinders. We'll probably get there.
Oh, that.
Yeah. So anyway, this is very useful because it tells you which way the thing is spinning, which is going to tell me which way it's pulling. And basically, on most of these, if you contact just over here, that's a good place. Because you'll be like going into that, and you can hold it steady. You just have to be aware of it and get a feel for it. Anything else? Questions? No matter where you're going to cut your things off today, I'm gonna ask you to make sure, well, here's the goal when you're doing that. You're trying to obviously cut off as close to the sculpture as you can, but getting so close that you nick it with your grinding wheel or cutoff wheel is not worth it. So it depends what's all around it, how you can get at it. If you can cut it close, good. But if you're gonna get in there and put a bunch of marks all over your piece, it isn't worth it. You know, leave a little stump, and that's when you go to your grinding wheel and grind that away, okay? But wherever you think you're gonna cut, do all of us a favor, and as best as you can get at it, why am I doing this? Because, like, I'm gonna cut this off. This has nothing to do with the sculpture. Why am I doing this?
So you can find a good spot to cut from. You can-
Well, okay.
And dust doesn't go over everywhere.
That's good. I'm doing it for another reason.
You don't have sand on the aluminum that's gone in the bucket, right?
Well, it does have to do with the sand. I mean, basically, like, whatever device I'm using, like these, like, think about using a saw, and I got sand in where I'm cutting. Like, I'm just dulling my blade for no reason if I can clean the sand out. So it's like, basically, if I know I'm gonna cut somewhere, and I'm, you know, want to make this last longer, better to get the sand out. But the thing about dust in the air or things flying, this does create particles, like little metal shards that are shooting like 8 or 10 feet really fast. So you have to have eye protection on. Who else are you responsible for?
Everybody around you.
Everybody around you. So if you're out there in the yard and somebody's cutting and grinding, you should have safety gear on. You're responsible for yourself. However, before you go to start something, if I'm just here about to grind and Callie's standing there with no eye protection, I go bazing, and I shoot metal into it, I was like, we're gonna argue about whose fault it is, right? You're responsible for what's going on around you. If somebody's working, don't go up to them without eye protection. Okay. Do we have another standing vise inside? I know I moved one outside today. I moved one out around. I'm actually leave this. How about this? Can somebody help me carry some of this out, and we're gonna rendezvous out there, and I'm gonna cut these off right now. Do you mind, Anna, if I cut yours off?
Yeah.
You do mind? You do mind, or may I?
Yeah.
Okay. If you guys grab eye protection.